Today we're going to talk about disinformation campaign. This is a difficult video for me to make due to a few reasons. First of all, it's not my strong suit. I focus more on greater geopolitical topics and macroeconomic issues. And second, I have to pause during the creation process of this video because I feel like I am touching some very sensitive topics and I end up having to edit out many of the details because those things might get not just my channel into problem, but might get myself into trouble. So I don't want to end up like Julian Assange. So let's give it a go. Now, I'm going to present to my audience a few short stories. And they're not really related directly with each other, but they are pointing towards the same direction. What I find interesting is not just the stories themselves, but the conclusion as well that the commentators draw at the end of the story. This is a podcast from a Taiwan YouTube video, which left me thinking and forced me to reflect on myself as well. So to me, this is like a mental gymnastic test. So I want to see how you guys take this story. So first story is this lady right here, XinJiang Abbas. I have no idea if any of you guys know her. Her official story is this. This is related to XinJiang, the Uyghurs. She was born, according to her, she was born in XinJiang. She organized pro-democracy demonstration back in the 1980s in China. She accused China of genocide in XinJiang. She said her sister has been imprisoned by the Chinese government for almost a decade now. And she traveled around the world rallying support against China's abuse of the Uyghurs population. Now, that's the official story put out by her. So I watched this Taiwan YouTube broadcast in Mandarin, and I see this channel to be reliable when it comes to providing reasonable, accurate information. An honorable guest came on to the broadcast and said this about her. The guest's name is Mr. Chiu. He said this about this lady, XinJiang Abbas. So a lot of people around the world follows her, and some people started to do background research on her and find that her age doesn't match with the experience she presented. It just so happened she made a few mistakes that might have exposed her true identity. This is according to the guest. I am unfamiliar with this issue, but I just want to share with you guys to see what you guys think. One of the most obvious mistakes she made was, according to the podcast speaker, Mr. Chiu, on her LinkedIn page, where she posted her previous experience. So her followers run a background check on her with the information she provided herself on her LinkedIn page. It ended up that she was a CIA employee. She was first hired by the US State Department and then was hired by the CIA. And why did the CIA hire her? It was because during the Afghan war, a lot of prisoners from Afghanistan was imprisoned in Guantanamo Bay. And those prisoners of war came straight from Afghanistan. And the goal is to gather intelligence off of those prisoners on information on terrorist organization in the country. But because of culture, language, and religious reason, the CIA employees found it very difficult to obtain intel from those Afghan prisoners. So this lady was hired later on by the intelligence agency to help with interrogation of those prisoners to better understand their background and extract information out of them. And many people here in United States know that Guantanamo Bay was under investigation by the US Congress because of the cruel method used during those interrogations, right? And the operation ended and she left Guantanamo Bay. It is likely after that she was redirected to the new operation by the US, different three-letter agency on an operation against China and Xinjiang. So many of her story and background might as well be falsified in order to fit her new role. So if you go online today, okay, if you just Google her name, those information are still there. I'm not kidding with you. Let me show you guys here. Okay, this is one of her webpage, okay, campaign for Uyghurs. And if you can see here, okay, there's her education history. She went to XinJiang University back in 1985. And then look at here. After that, she has worked closely with members of the Congress since the 1990s. Directly from a pro-democracy demonstration at XinJiang University to working with members of Congress. And then Miss Abbas here was a co-founder of the California base. So here in California, Uyghur Overseas Student Association in 1993. That's quite quick, as you can see. Just a few years from being a protester in Xinjiang to opening a society here in California. And then down here, from 2002 to 2013, 11 years, Miss Abbas translated for the 22 Uyghurs who were being held in Guantanamo Bay and worked closely with the U.S. Department of Defense, Department of Justice, State Department, and U.S. administration with these prisoners, and later on resettle them to different countries around the world. So they didn't even try to hide this information of long history of her working with the US State Department. I mean, over 20 years. And this is till 2013. And then later on, he started more, different organizations and movements supporting Uyghurs and, accusing Chinese regime of genocide. I mean, look at this. Even Wikipedia find her background information unreliable, but hey, it could be true. Look at this. This is on her Wikipedia page, okay? You can browse it. She's also the first Uyghur to join the Free Asia Radio, a US-funded NGO to spread democracy, of course, in Asia. So I went online and checked all this information. And this Mr. Chu, what he said actually check out about this Lady Abbas. And a lot of her background seems to be very suspicious. She's one of the most vocal activists in supporting freedom of Xinjiang and accusing China of genocide and all this kind of thing. But again, if you want to promote this kind of thing, don't you want to hide your background of interrogating Uyghurs in Guantanamo Bay for the US State Department? These things don't work together. Please accuse me of just paranoid or something, but to my logic, this is very suspicious. Okay, of course, maybe all these things can be true. Who knows? Now, I can't verify this woman or her story completely, but I do want to say something about Xinjiang myself. I've been to Xinjiang no less than 5 times. I used to source raw materials from Xinjiang, mainly cotton. And if you guys want to see what Xinjiang looks like today, here's a video. That's what Xinjiang looks like today. Yeah, you guys know Afghanistan is actually located right next to Xinjiang, right? It literally borders Xinjiang. And you want to know how Afghan looks like today compared to Xinjiang after US spent, 10 trillion in that place? I mean, 10 trillion after the initial war, that is. So take a look. Oh wait, no, that's here in Los Angeles. Sorry, wrong video. Now, this is how Afghan looks at night, right now. Well, it is not that bad, to be honest. Might be better and safer than downtown Los Angeles, to be honest. No joke. But who knows? Well, let me give you guys an extremely short Chinese version of the story regarding Xinjiang, okay? This is the Chinese perspective. Now, Xinjiang became part of China when PRC founded the new government back in 1949. The whole China was poor back then. I would say for majority of the time, life in Xinjiang was better than even life in the center of China, where I was from, because there were famines and starvation where I was from, which affect Xinjiang less due to the smaller population density. Xinjiang started to develop fast over the last 2 to 3 decades, but according to Chinese government, were also exposed to US muddling, backing the so-called separatist movement. There were a few terrorist attacks. Let me show you a video right here.
For their involvement in the Kunming station killings in Yunnan province that left 31 people dead. Chinese authorities have blamed the violence on separatists from XinJiang, home to the Muslims Uyghur minority, where a series of similar incidents have been seen in recent years.
So that was a terrorist attack launched by the Uyghur separatists, according to the Chinese government, in a Chinese train station. Now, Chinese government took measure to contain the problems, including using those re-education facilities. Now, the problems are solved, and I think most, if not all of those facilities are converted into other uses. And Xinjiang today is a very popular tourist attraction and rich in agricultural production. People live in peaceful and stable life there. But is it Switzerland? No. But I would say the standard of living is average by Chinese standard, and also I would say is above average by global standard. So the life there is pretty good. To me, every time someone just randomly mentions Xinjiang in my comment section, you almost always mean that the person has never been to Xinjiang and just repeating what the mainstream media says about Xinjiang, right? Was there any government foul play there in Xinjiang? I would say yes, definitely. Is it more intense than other provinces in China? I will also say yes, because after the terrorist attack, the Uyghur population movement across China was strictly limited for several years, and I think the restriction has been lifted now. And it's a lovely place to visit, so I suggest you guys who want to visit there, go check it out. It's beautiful, absolutely. And this is not the only story Mr. Chiu shared here, but he also shares few other examples in which there are social media accounts, websites in which hosts, the owner of, let's say, a Facebook account, that person didn't really exist. And the followers only found out one day because there was a system breakdown. And the account started to release information that was not supposed to be released by this person, unrelated, and the followers start to understand, oh, this is a fake person, a fake account. And this story I want to skip, and I want to jump straight to the conclusion, which I think is much more interesting. The conclusion is what got me thinking here, and I want to see what my audience think. According to Mr. Chiu here, part of the core disinformation campaign is like training an artificial intelligence system. Now, AI is a popular topic today, right? And to train an AI is to feed large amount of data and information to the system and use mathematical model to artificially duplicate or replicate the neural system of a human brain. So, statistically speaking, the more data you feed into a system, the more human-like you will become from the AI's perspective. However, if the programmer feed AI with biased information, then the AI will also end up having a biased artificial mindset. And this flawed originated from us human beings, because human neurology, our thinking pattern and logic system, is also flawed to begin with. If a human being, like you and me. If we're fed with biased or incorrect information for the first time, something ridiculous, we might laugh and deny the information, right? However, if that is done to us in massive quantity, day in and day out, we will eventually start to believe it. Now, let me give you guys an example of this, okay? And at the beginning of the Ukraine war, right, there's this massive amount of mainstream media report on Russia running out of ammunition and weapons and missiles, which to me is a bit ridiculous because I am an industrial consultant and I do have a bit of network and understanding of Russia's industry, how it is designed and leaned towards the military production sector, and how the entire Russian supply chain was designed towards that direction. Okay, but after reading all this information about Russians running out of ammunition, and also all my Eastern European friends I talked to that were so sure about Russian is running out of ammunition and was laughing about how Russia is going to collapse soon, I started to doubt a bit as well. And I wonder if I was overconfident in Russia's ability to produce ammo efficiently, right? So if you look at a scale, all right, from 0 to 10, let's say 0, I have no confidence, and 10, I have maximum confidence. Maybe at the beginning, I was at like an 8, okay? And after all these media news on Russia running out of this and that, I reduced from an 8 to maybe like a 5. So I start to doubt as well. And that's for me, an industrial consultant. And imagine people who, a lot of this audience of mine who in their entire life never been in a factory. So this kind of information will impact them a lot more severely than how it impacts me, because I consider, at least in this sector, I can tell the difference between accurate information and inaccurate information. But even I am kind of tricked to believe that maybe Russia is running a little bit problems into, making those artillery shells and all those things. So after more than a year, right, my European friends were like confused. Why is Russia still firing missiles and artillery shell each day? I thought they were running out of ammunition, have to fight with, shovels and things like that.
Good.
Oh, no. Hey, la piñata. Sí, sí, para la buque.
Poor man. So trusted. So fragile. So delicious.
And that's when I started to realize that even me, I've been affected by potential disinformation here as well. And if not disinformation, at least inaccurate information, right? And what happened was that I was being trained by mainstream media news to think towards a certain way, all right? Just like how they train the AI. When CNN tells me that Russia is running low on ammo, I laughed it. But then after 10 other mainstream media news said the same thing, BBC, CBS, Fox News, AP News, Writer, Washington Post, all those things, they all start saying the same thing. I start to lean on believing it as well. And that's training me like an AI, right? So the podcast went into more philosophical and psychological discussion afterward. And this applies to all my audience, okay? Listen to this if it makes sense to you. We all have our life to live and business to run, family to take care of. Maybe we can find out more truth on one particular issues. For example, this Abbas lady or the real situation in XinJiang. We can spend hundreds, if not thousands of hours, right? And cross and compare, research all the source and informations. And if we still have doubt, we can, theoretically speaking, fly to China, fly to XinJiang, and find out about the truth ourselves. But just because we can do it doesn't mean that we will do it, because it is very costly and there's also a lack of motivation. And that is actually one of the core elements of disinformation. It is easy to misinform a person of a place where people don't usually travel to, especially people from the West, like XinJiang, compared to, let's say, here in Los Angeles. If the government tried to misinform me, saying that, the gasoline now in the gas station costs $20 a gallon, well, I can just drive out in under a minute to the nearby gas station and look at that myself. And that's obviously not true. The gas price is about $5 per gallon, which is very expensive already. But if it is somewhere like XinJiang, then they can provide inaccurate information and can get away with it most of the time because people don't really travel there and provide accurate information to debunk those inaccurate information. And if people actually go there and say that, well, this is not the case, then the government can just censor maybe a few channels and still manage to keep the mass public manipulated, right? Now, after the Ukraine war, to my surprise, okay, maybe not to many of my wiser audience, is that almost all mainstream media's news outlet has become unreliable to me and untrustworthy. To me, it started as early as perhaps the protests in Hong Kong, but the reputation of mainstream media outlet completely collapsed in my mind after the Ukraine war. And this is due to the hyper information and economic war waged against China as well at the same time, right? So for Mr. Xu, he said something very pessimistic towards the end of the video, the podcast, okay? He said that if you have kids today and that kid want to know the truth about global issues and events, whether it is Ukraine, Russia, China, and many other things, including US, I would say, which news source can you really confidently recommend to your kid, to your son and daughters today? And according to him, his answer is that there's none. After 2 years of Ukraine war, we're witnessing a complete collapse of mainstream media reputation. That all of these news outlets have been weaponized by certain entity to channel our thoughts towards a certain direction. Well, this information campaign, this kind of information warfare itself is very Asian strategy. Manipulate and control population. The goal is often not to remove truth completely, but create a scenario in which the ruler or the government persuade the majority to think how the government, for example, want them to think, right? And this apply also to China, obviously, not just to US and the West. There's more, of course, when he said that all these accusations regarding Russian disinformation or Chinese disinformation, if you trace down the root, the ecosystem of this entire disinformation business, you will find out that the majority of these things are often always funded by US-led NGOs, US State Department, and other US-led entities and Western-led entities. There's really not that many Chinese-led propaganda channels out there in English language space. The global English language space is dominated by, I would say, Anglo-Saxon narratives. That's how I see it. So, every single video that I post on YouTube, all right, there's always somebody, depending on the topics, that will, come in and say something like, all right, you sound like a Chinese propagandist. And every time when I hear something like that, I get very excited. And does it mean that this guy who just said it know other me on YouTube? And I was like very eager to say that, oh, you know a lot about Chinese propaganda stand? Can you show me another channel? I want to go watch it, right? I want to see another Chinese English speaking, propagandists out there who are speaking, information that you consider to be extremely biased or inaccurate or whatever. And usually they can't tell me any channels. So, but they were their brain is kind of trained in a way to say that, okay, this guy says something that I find not matching with my narrative or how I see the world. So I consider him to be a propagandist. Maybe that's the reason. Now, he made a final conclusion, which I can't comment on it too much because I'm still trying to figure out. I want to see what you guys think, okay, about what he said here. This is completely what he said. I didn't add anything to it, okay? He said that there's a fatal flaw in spreading disinformation or launching this kind of disinformation campaign. When your original intention is to manipulate and destabilize your geopolitical opponent, aim at their population or try to manipulate your own population towards a certain political agenda, eventually the effect will boomerang and hit yourself. Because the original strategy is to keep repeating something that it is untrue until others start to believe in it, right? But the ultimate risk, which you cannot avoid, is that when you repeat so much of your own lies, you start to believe in yourself as well. And according to Mr. Shiu here, this is exactly what is happening to United States today, in which mainstream media is losing all of its credibility. And not even Americans themselves believe in their own media anymore. Which is difficult to imagine how a democracy can work in a country when the population don't even believe in its own media, right? Have to rely on private media. That would be, I'm not saying like private media space is chaotic, I mean, but it is difficult to, have consistent information just by reading and watching private media sources, right? Like independent like me. Now, the second thing, according to Mr. Shiu, which is what I think more important, is that this is also what is driving the division in the United States today, in which we are becoming more polarized. Democrats and Republican supporters cannot even come together to have a proper discussion. And we just, stand on the opposite side of the bank of a river, accusing each other of stuck in their own disinformation.
To close the border.
Invest in education.
Save the children.
The border is when Trump left.
Hey, where are all the kids? Where are the migrant
What
children?
kids?
You guys
We're
lost
accepting them.
them.
We love them.
You lost
We
them.
love the migrant
There's
children.
tens of thousands
We lost
missing.
them.
You can't find them.
What are you
That's
talking
your
about?
administration.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, migrant children missing. You don't know
No, we don't know the news. I don't know. That's Fox News. That's Fox News. Listen, I need you to say it at the party.
Because the original intention is supposed to sow chaos or distrust among relationship of other countries, right? But decades of information warfare ended up making us, Americans, the people here in United States, one of the most divided country on this planet. I don't know, is this true? It feels true, but I don't think I know other countries well enough to answer this question. Is United States right now one of the most divided country on this planet? That seems like a very pessimistic claim, but it could be true, really. So I want to challenge my audience at the end here to a question, all right? How do you know I'm not a Chinese government agent? This entire room could be a setup, right? I never really make a video outside of this room, not even from a different angle. Behind this camera, there could be an entire Chinese information warfare department sitting there, okay? And that right now, I'm not in Los Angeles. I'm actually maybe in Beijing or Moscow. I read and reply all my comments under my video consistently, okay? All of them. And that's a lot of work. And maybe there's a chance that it was done by my fellow Communist Party assistants. And they were trained to manipulate my audience and gain their trust, right? You don't know that for sure. Maybe all the personal story I gave you in this channel is all fabricated and falsified. None of them are true. I only make 36 videos in my channel so far, and eventually I might make mistake, right? And you will see like a Chinese guy wearing a suspicious suit walking into this room and handing me like scripts, which then the guy who edited this video forgot to, take it out and publish it. And my undercover will be blown, right? And sometimes you can catch those, what I call like minor details, perhaps. If, for example, I'm in Beijing or I'm in Moscow, I run out to grab like a lunch, a McDonald's, and I come back and I finish my food and I put the drink on my table. And, let's say for McDonald's, if you see like labels, symbols writing in Chinese, that means that I'm definitely not in United States or here in Los Angeles, right? Because if you buy a medium soda here, there will not be Chinese or, Russians on that drink. That means that I've accidentally blown my cover or something like that. So I want to ask my audience, from a scale of, let's say, 0 to 10, okay? 10 being completely confident of me being just a random Chinese guy here in Los Angeles, making YouTube videos, speaking his mind. Or let's say 0 being I'm totally a Chinese agent sitting in a basement of a bunker in Beijing or Shanghai or somewhere and just, having this security clearance and making this kind of videos just to manipulate my audience in the West. It could be true. I mean, so you can rate me, okay, from 0 to 10. Don't be shy. I mean, I know I have a lot of loyal and faithful audience. Just rate me. What is me? Like, not my work, not the topic that I talk about, but just, do you see me just as someone who's legitimately just doing what I said I'm doing? Or am I hired by external agents? And I want to see how you guys think and why you guys think this way. And for people who say that, okay, I'm just like a 2 or 3, there's a high chance that I'm not in Los Angeles and in US. And if I'm here, I'm somehow a paid agent of China and just spreading disinformation or biased information about China. If that's the case, what makes you think that way? Do you have experience in other channel that feels that way? And is there anything that I can do or say that will improve or change and, build a stronger trust between you and me? Yeah, let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the next video.